Welcome to another place and time where one day you'll be dead or you'll survive.
Hello, everybody. I am Rob Riches,
And I'm Cheryl Riches,
and we're your host of the podcast,
Dead or Survive.
So here we are, episode 4, take 362.
Yeah, we've had a moment.
Or 2.
But I'm sure this is going to be the winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Anyways, I'd like to put a big shout out there to Karen Gopso, who's one of our listeners that we work with. She's listened to every episode so far. She's on our Instagram. And I'd also like to do a big shout out to Ben Lines.
And I'll throw a shout out to Leah Woodward.
Why?
Well, because she has been listening to all of our episodes too. Because she's a kick-ass kind of person. Just for that.
Nope. I don't like it. I like our podcast email better than I like that.
That's concerning.
So let's go over our checklist and let's get episode 4, 398, take 6,002 underway.
All right, let's do this.
Have you still got your story?
I've still got my story.
Have you filled your wine back up?
Yep, I'm on glass 3.
Glass tree. She doesn't even know. Awesome. All right, potato chip, let her rip.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. It's let her rip potato chip.
Let her rip potato.
Maybe I've been drinking the wine.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, I'm going to talk about Maurice and Marilyn Bailey. Maurice and Marilyn Bailey were, they were kind of hippie-ish. They were nature lovers. They loved climbing mountains and doing trails and all those.
So they wore like the flowers around their head and the long gowns.
They probably did. I didn't see
Headed
that.
to Woodstock.
Yeah, but they were from England. So as hippies as English people can be.
Oh, there was the Beatles, right?
Were they? Yeah, they were hippies, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know if they were hippies, but most of their songs were for hippies, weren't they?
Yes. Okay. So let's say they were taken after the Beatles and they were just out there loving life, not maybe doing a little bit of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I'm not sure. Anyways, their real passion was the sea, but they didn't have enough money to buy a boat. So in 1966, Marilyn came up with this idea to sell everything and buy a boat and live on board. And at first, Maurice was like, nope, don't want to do it. That sounds nuts. But Marilyn was like, come on, let's do it. It'll be so fun. We can pack everything up. We're going to live on a boat. And then we'll immigrate and we'll go live in New Zealand for the rest of our lives. And she kept at him. And eventually Maurice agreed.
You know, every time you say the name Maurice, Steve Miller Band comes to my mind. I don't know why. I just get that section.
Sometimes they call me Maurice.
Yep, that's the one. Only they sang it like in tune and in pitch.
Yeah, there's that. So they ordered a 10-meter long boat.
They ordered it?
They ordered
like they was called up by Amazon, said they'd give me a 10.
I'm not sure how you go about ordering a 30-foot boat, but that's what they did.
30 foot.
10 meters, 30 feet.
Oh, you're helping out our American audience.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Isn't it? I did it slyly, too. They named the boat the Orlin, which is a combination of their two names. And it took almost 4 years to get it completely ready because they had to prepare it with all of their equipment and they had to learn how to sail. I'm sure they knew how to sail a little bit, but they really had to get ready to be just two people in the middle of a huge ocean. So they had to hone in their sailing skills. In June of 1972, they departed from Southampton, England, and they made stops in Spain, Portugal, Madeira, and the Canary Islands. So far, this trip sounds like an absolute dream.
Yeah, I guess.
They crossed the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas, and after a few stops on some islands in the Caribbean, they found...
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
Rum, sun.
Well, Canary Islands, same thing.
Naked women running around. Not that I would look at those because I have my beautiful wife. I'm just saying it's there if other people want to partake in it.
So they finally get to Panama and they take the Panama Canal across the Americas to get to the Pacific Ocean. And now their plan is to cross the Pacific and eventually get to New Zealand, of course. 7 days into their journey on the Pacific, just as it's getting light out and the couple are making a nice breakfast for themselves, there's a huge bang. So they go running to the deck to see what happened. The boat shook so violently that books and tools that were firmly stowed away fell across the cabin. When they get to the deck, they see that a 12-meter sperm whale had surfaced alongside the boat. So this whale is larger than their boat.
Well, that's because it's 12 meters and the boat's 10 meters.
Right. So 36 feet.
Thanks for the math.
It had smashed its tail against the hull, and the water was red with blood. And sailors are taught that if you feel threatened by a whale, you should start an engine or bang on the hull, because a mechanical noise will warn a whale that the boat is not another animal. Whales, if they think that you're another animal and think that you might be a rival for food, they might come and try to beat you up. So that is the thinking on that.
So what they think is that that maybe the whale attacked it because they were in sail motion, so that's why it attacked it.
They were quiet, and he didn't know that, or she didn't know that it was just a boat and not another animal, and thought, well, this thing is going to eat all my food. It's big.
Do you know what I love about whales?
What's that?
They prove that eating salad does not help you lose weight.
Oh, really? You think so?
Yep.
Krill. Maurice said that the poor animal was bleeding extensively, and they could see that it was close to death. They were watching the whale in so much pain and bleeding so badly that instead of being angry with it, they actually felt sorry for it. They discovered that there was water rising in the cabin, and Moreland started one of the 2 water pumps while Maurice tried to find where the water was coming in. What he found was a large hole in the hull just below the water line on the side of the boat. So from the outside, they tried to take one of their sails and drape it across the hole and tried to stop the water that way.
They tried to stop the water with a sail.
Yeah, but on the inside, they had the sail on the outside, but on the inside, they stuffed it full of cushions and clothes.
Well, that'll work.
It didn't.
It's like a big paper towel for the ocean. Is that what they thought? We'll just
yeah.
sop up the water.
Yeah, it was like a bounty.
Amazing. A Bounty quicker picker upper.
It didn't work.
By the way, just an interruption. If Bounty would like to sponsor this podcast, let us know.
We believe that you could sop up the entire ocean. We believe in you. But the water just kept coming in, and they wondered if there was more damage somewhere else, but they couldn't find it. So they were sure that there was more water leaking in elsewhere.
And the whale wasn't white, right? It wasn't like Moby Dick and
no, this isn't.
It was a little off from Ahab or whatever.
It wasn't Captain Ahab, and it wasn't Moby Dick.
All right.
So
starting to think that you read Moby Dick and thought you'd tell us a story about it.
It got to the point where they realized that they were not going to be able to save the ship, and it was time for Plan B. Maurice.
Swim to shore.
No.
Oh.
No. Maurice released the life raft and inflated the dinghy that he insisted on bringing as backup and tied the 2 together.
So let me get this straight. The wife, the whole time, bugging to do this trip, and the guy brought the dinghy for the safety?
Okay, so that was his one thing. She is a superstar in this story, let me tell you.
Yeah, she started out so well. This is like the origin story, I guess.
I should also point out that Marilyn couldn't swim.
Of course not. Why would you know how to swim? You're going to embark across the ocean from England to New Zealand, stop at all these ports.
She was going to wing it. It was.
Oh, wing it. She took 4 years to get a boat ready. Learn to swim.
She was a hippie. It was all just going to work out in the end. It was fine. It was fine.
4 years to prepare. Never thought once, maybe I should take a swimming lesson while I'm getting ready. Nah. Screw that. We got cushions and Bounty picker upper if anything goes wrong.
So Marilyn waited around below the deck, collecting food and equipment in the rising water. And she put as much as she could into 2 sail bags, along with the emergency survival pack, and dropped them into the dinghy. Meanwhile, Maurice had collected all the freshwater containers he could find and threw them into the dinghy.
Good job, Maurice. I got you, buddy.
The boat sank rather slowly and gave them enough time to collect as much as they could. The other advantage they had was that the day was pretty calm and the ocean was pretty non-wavy.
You know why? Do you know why the ocean's like that?
Why is that?
I was listening to this podcast once, and it told me that the Pacific Ocean is actually named that way because it's peaceful and calm.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Or it could have been this podcast, episode 4, take 3 or 6 or something. I'm sure somewhere throughout today,
I told you that.
somewhere throughout the day, I heard that the Pacific is calm and peaceful.
This is, compared to the Atlantic, it is that. But however, not today for these 2.
I thought you said it was.
Okay, but except for the boat is sinking.
That was the whale's fault, not the weather's fault.
That's true, but it's not.
It's not like you pulled up your app and went, "What's whaling today?" Oh, yes. Look, there's a lot of whales in our area today on our whaling app, but the weather looks fantastic.
But it did happen during daylight, so they had that going for them. After loading everything they could into their life raft, they watched their boat
I
sink.
feel like you just brushed me off and continued on with your story.
That's what I did.
Okay.
I'm going to do it again. So, yeah, poor people watching their boat sink, all their hopes and dreams go underwater. It had only been about an hour since the whale hit the boat, but they'd been able to rescue some canned food and enough water to last for about 20 days, plus 2 empty buckets to collect rainwater. They also had a sextant. So I tried to look up what a sextant was. I don't know. It's confusing. It's like you put the sun in one spot and then you put the horizon in the other spot and magically it tells you where you are somehow. I'm not really sure.
It's got like the 2 steel points to go on a map and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know what it is. I'll show you my sextant later.
Yeah, you're going to show me your sextant?
Yep. Just so you guys know, right now, my wife is blushing. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can still make me blush, baby. Okay, so they had maps, a compass, a box of matches, a flashlight,
Sextant.
You just want to say sextant. A pair of scissors, a pair of binoculars, 6 emergency flares, and a bag with some clothes.
My God, with all that, they could live like 7 months out there.
7 months? No, not quite that long.
A year.
Maurice used the sextant to calculate that they were about 300 miles northeast of the Galapagos Islands.
Where are the Galapagos Islands?
I think they're right off of Ecuador. Although I could be wrong, but I think that's where they are. Chile? Maybe. I think Ecuador, though.
I want to say Chile. I think they're closer to Chile.
I think Chile is the Easter Islands.
Okay, well, I'm looking this up while you keep talking.
Right, geography lesson. There we go.
That was my phone.
The winds and the currents were pushing them further away from the islands, so they needed to do something quickly. So they made a plan to try and row towards the south to reach the Galapagos. I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever find yourself in the middle of an ocean in a life raft, don't do this. Oh, you've got an answer.
Oh, I've got an answer.
What's the answer?
Peru.
Oh, so I was off completely?
Yep. Yep. You better buy a sextant because you have no idea where you're at. Not a clue.
But is Chile the Easter Islands? Please tell me that.
What?
Is Chile the Easter Islands?
No.
I think.
Just tell your story because now you're lost. You don't even know where you are on this planet.
Okay, we're in this planet not paddling if you're ever stuck in a life raft. Because if you do that, you're going to burn your much needed calories in your water and you're just going to exhaust yourself faster than you need to. So for 3 days straight, they paddled all day and night. They paddled through the heat and through the cold. And when one needed to rest, the other kept paddling. And after 3 days, they realized they hadn't moved at all. And now they were exhausted, weak, and had burned through their provisions. In fact, they only had enough water to last for another 5 days. The first few days they survived on canned food, but after a week they decided they had better try and find other sources of food because they were going through their supply pretty quickly. That's when they caught the first turtle. This really bothered Maurice because turtles are so docile and beautiful, and he felt really badly harming one. Once they stopped rowing and the wind started taking them northwards, it was taking them further from land, but it was putting them right into the shipping lanes towards the Panama Canal, so there was a better chance that they might see a ship.
Woohoo! And just in case you're wondering, Easter Island is located about 2,300 miles from Chile.
But I think it's the closest still.
I'm not getting into all that. This is not a geography podcast.
Even though they were right in the area of shipping lanes, the sighting of a ship is very uncommon. Even on the calmest day on the ocean, the furthest that you can see is 2 miles away because of the curvature of the Earth.
Come on. Curvature?
Curvature.
The Earth is flat.
God, here we go. Flat Earth. It would be weeks before you might see a ship, and even then, the most important part is they have to see you too. Most of the crew on the cargo ships spend their days inside their cabins, and the ships are usually sailing on autopilot. On the 8th day that they had been adrift, they saw their first ship. It was only about 1.5 miles away, and they were super excited to see it. They fired their flares to attract attention, but the ship just kept sailing.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
During the next 4 months, 4 months, they saw another 6 ships. One of them even came close enough during a dark night that it almost ran them over. So they waited until their very last possible moment, and then they shot their last flare directly at the bridge, but there was nobody there to see it. Another ship that looked like a naval vessel actually stopped about a mile from them. Their flares were all gone, so they took a turtle shell, flipped it upside down, and set some of their clothes on fire to create smoke. Unfortunately, it was a windy day, so the little smoke that it did make moved away quickly and horizontally.
Maybe what they should have done is talk to Leah about how to make a smoky fire, like a smoke without fire.
That's what they need.
Leah needs to do a survival tutorial
on how to make smoke.
On how to make smoke, not fire.
Our friend Leah knows how to Leah a fire like the best of them.
I can't wait for her to hear this.
And eventually the ship sailed on. Every time this happened, the couple was crushed. Moreland wrote in her...
Okay, I did say that she's on to her third glass of wine, right?
Marilyn wrote in her diary, despite all our signals, the ships don't want to see us, so we don't want to see them. And Maurice explained that there seemed so little hope of a ship seeing us. As the days stretched into weeks and the weeks into months, we adjusted to our new surroundings, and the ships we saw became an intrusion in our lives, and their passing always disturbed us. Water was also becoming a problem, and they barely had a cupful each day. During the first few days, hundreds of fish began to live under their raft for shade and shelter. The fish brought turtles, dolphins, and sharks to feed on them, and their life raft became a floating island, and within a few days they had their own little mini ecosystem. Marilyn even said that she saw a crab in the middle of the Pacific using the life raft as shelter. So Maurice did an interview in the 90s, and I encourage you to check it out because it's fascinating to watch. But in this interview, he said, "We found all these animals companionable, and they helped to alleviate our isolation. It was a unique and privileged experience. We were seduced by all the creatures we saw at very close quarters, none showing any fear of us at all. We found ourselves so close to the sea, living just like sea creatures ourselves. In our need to survive, we had to compete with other animals of the sea for our sustenance. At any time, they might have dorados, dolphins, sharks, whale sharks, orca, and turtles under the raft. Birds visited them every day." Okay, so before I get into this next part, I have to tell you that I am a birder.
Nerd.
It used to be very embarrassing for me. My parents...
Now it's embarrassing for me.
In fact, my parents pulled over on a major highway one time to see a snowy owl, and I hid in the back seat, and my mom said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Somebody from my school might see me." And she's like, "You're on the middle of a major highway. What friends are going to see you here?" I was like, "I don't care. I'm hiding." But now I embrace it. I love being a birder. So anyways, the point of this story is when I tell you that a booby landed on the side of the life raft, I'm talking about a bird. Boobies are birds.
So we have sexton and boobies.
This is true. Somebody had a sense of humor when they were naming these things.
Well, I know. There's a lot of tits out there that are birds too. There's like a 5-year-old boy went, "Hee, I'm going to name this bird."
At one point, a booby sat on the side of the life raft and dropped a fish, which became their dinner. Other times, though, when a booby landed on the raft, they became dinner themselves. At one point, they had a massive whale pull up alongside the life raft. In the same interview I was talking about earlier, Maurice told the story.
And they ate the whale?
I don't think that's a thing. I don't know if you can really imagine what it's like to be sitting on a life raft and a whale comes up close to you. So close that we could have reached out to touch it without stretching. It was such a treat to see this whale alongside you, and she did nothing. She just stared at us with her unblinking eye, just straight at us. We were afraid of any quick movement on its part would be enough to upset our life raft. It sat there for a long time, 20 minutes, half an hour. I got to know her very well, and when she went off very slowly, glided away and dived, not a splash. It was marvelous to see that, and then at night we could hear the calls of these whales all around us.
Like in Finding Nemo, Dory?
Yeah, just like that.
Why are you in the dinghy?
I wish I could speak whale.
I picture Castaway for that part. You remember when he's out in the ocean, after he's tried to leave the island and he's killed Wilson and
oh yes,
he's out there and that whale comes up beside him?
I wonder if that's where they got this idea actually. Or that idea.
Maybe.
Okay, so they came up with this next plan, which I think is kind of brilliant. They figured that the turtles that were under the raft were from the Galapagos, which is where they were hoping to head.
Which is by Peru, just so you know.
The Galapagos by Peru. So they caught a large male and they tied a rope to its rear flipper. And to their amazement, the turtle started towing them in the right direction. In fact, it towed them so quickly that they started to see ripples of a bow wave. Now they thought that if they tied 2 or 3 turtles, they might have a team pulling them into land. So they tied up a second turtle. Unfortunately, it had other ideas about the whole situation and started swimming in another direction. So that idea was a bust.
Maybe they just need to train it. If I remember correctly, didn't Ariel's father, Neptune, come in with turtles pulling his spears?
That's true. That's true. I forgot all about that, actually.
See?
But can you imagine if you had been on land watching a life raft with a dinghy being pulled in by a team of turtles? That would have been epic. Now let's talk about what they ate for their 4 months at sea. Birds became their easiest source of food. The boobies and the petrels didn't have many predators on land because they lived on deserted islands with no big mammals. So they were fearless, and they would land on the raft, and the Baileys would simply grab them and kill them. One even landed on Maurice's head at one point. They had no way to cook their food, so everything was eaten raw. The turtles were always around the raft, but they were difficult to kill. Maurice said in his interview, "We would turn the struggling reptile on its back and attempt to hack off its head with my knife. It must have been awful for the poor creature, since death did not come quickly. Getting through the leathery skin and neck bones took a very long time, and the turtle must have been in an excruciating pain before it was beheaded. Although we tried not to cut through the jugular vein until the last possible moment, sometimes we struck it early and had to catch the pumping blood while the animal was still alive." Do you know why they had to catch the pumping blood?
I'm going to throw it out there because they wanted to chum the water for sharks.
And now it's because they drank it. They drank the turtle's blood. Yeah. They ate the fish eyeballs. They didn't waste anything. It was all calories. That's all it was to them.
I guess that's a good thing though, right? If you're eating everything, I mean, if you have to do it.
Yes, true. Then Maurice said, having a dead turtle was one thing, and then we had to butcher it. Again, it was a struggle for us to cut through the lower shell for the meat inside. How many turtles we caught, I cannot be sure, but the death of one was never a pleasant occasion. Marilyn and I promised, should we survive this ordeal, no animal would suffer at our hands ever again, and so eventually we became vegetarians. They didn't have fish hooks in their survival pack, but Marilyn came up with a great idea when she discovered some stainless steel safety pins in her first aid kit, which she bent into barbless hooks. She tied a piece of string to each and used turtle meat as bait, and they were able to begin fishing, especially triggerfish, which became their main source of food. They later found that if they put their hands covered with turtle blood in the water, the triggerfish would grab onto their hands, and all they had to do was pull their hands back into the boat, and they could catch 10 or more fish with no effort.
Have you seen it on YouTube where these guys are going in and they're actually sticking their hand in the water, and they'll actually go in and stick their whole hand in, and they pull out this great big fish or whatever right out of the water?
No, it's like grabbing onto their hand, or they're just grabbing
it goes right up to their elbow.
Oh, that's weird.
It's wild. I'll show you.
All right. They estimate they ate about 4,000 triggerfish, and they also caught 4 sharks and ate them. So Marilyn would watch the sharks drift past the raft, and one day she put her finger on the nose of a shark and let it slide along its body to its tail as it swam past. She found that amusing, so she did it more. Every time the sharks would come by, she would entertain herself by dragging her finger along the sharks as they swam past. Until one day, without even talking to Maurice about this, she just grabbed the shark's tail and pulled it into the raft. It was almost 2 meters long and almost filled the raft. Maurice, taken by surprise, jumped up and tried to stab the shark a bunch of times, but that didn't kill it. Marilyn kept hold of its tail, and Maurice eventually tied a shirt around its head to suffocate it. So he's just got this first shark barely dead when she grabbed another one and threw it in the raft, and then a third. So Maurice was getting overwhelmed with all these sharks. But they discovered that once it was all killed and done, that shark meat doesn't taste very good, especially raw. So they didn't do that so much anymore.
And yet people pay hundreds of dollars for shark fin soup.
Yeah, which is a horrible, horrible thing. Sharks would swim fast below the surface and hit hard against the life raft floor.
Well, yeah, because she was pulling them up and eating them.
Actually, I did read why they do that, and I can't remember. I think they were just like itching their skin or something, and that's how they did it. So when they hit the surface of the floor, it would cause pain and bruises. It would hit their bodies, basically, because they were just sitting on a little rubber mat. And dolphins were also troublesome in this respect. But they started to become luckier in terms of water. The further north they drifted, the more it rained. Sometimes they had more rain than what they could cope with. The rain was so heavy that they had to constantly bail water from their life raft. Sometimes they didn't see the sun for a week at a time. Maurice became ill, developing a fever and chronic chest pains, coughing up blood, and every movement caused intense pains. While he was ill, they had storms where the dinghy was overturned several times. So not the life raft that they're sitting in, but the dinghy that's tied to the back. It was overturned a couple times. And the effort of righting it was so exhausting that it brought them both to the point of collapse. During the storms, it wasn't possible to fish, but some of the storms lasted several days, so Maurice had no choice but to climb into the dinghy and try fishing. But a strong gust of wind flipped the dinghy over and threw him into the sea. When he eventually got back into the dinghy, they watched tons of water go over the life raft along with a bunch of their supplies, including their fishing hooks. Maurice said, "We lost much of our valuable equipment during the storms. Our ulcerated bodies grew more painful, and the sea remained rough, and the raft and dinghy had to be either bailed or inflated continuously." On the 110th day, it was calm and they'd caught some fish. They bailed the raft. They inflated the dinghy. The raft was falling apart at this point because it wasn't meant to be in the water for as long as it had been. They were resting, and Marilyn, I keep saying that,
Yeah.
tried to wake up Maurice, but he refused. She said, "I can hear a ship's engine." Maurice wondered if Marilyn had started to go mad because they hadn't seen a ship in 45 days. He watched in the direction that she was pointing, and suddenly he saw a fishing boat on the horizon. They used all of their strength to stand and wave their oilskins at the ship.
And then what happened?
And then what happened is I lost my spot.
So.
Okay, there it is. They used all their strength to stand. Okay, there we go. He said to Marilyn, "Let it go. Save your strength. This is our life now on the sea among the fishes, birds, and turtles." But then she said, "It's coming back." The ship had changed directions and was slowly coming towards them. The ship threw over a rope ladder, which the couple climbed, and collapsed on the deck. They had been rescued by a South Korean fishing boat that was on their way home.
So they've been out in the ocean for 4 months, barely eating, becoming emaciated. And these guys thought, hey, you guys should climb the ladder. We're not coming down to help you.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was weird too. They also worried that they were Russian. This must have been during Cold War times.
In the 70s? I don't know. I thought Cold War was like the 80s with Gorbachev and...
I don't know, but they did yell something about if they were Russian, they were in trouble. So I don't know. I don't know my history well enough to get into that.
I'm not looking it up. I already did geography.
The first thing they drank was milk. They couldn't eat for about a week because their stomachs had shrunk so much that it would just make them sick. They'd receive medical attention. Maurice had suffered from deep vein thrombosis and had a blood clot in his lung. So they were diverted to Honolulu where they could receive medical attention. Their muscles had atrophied to a point where they could barely walk. They both suffered from vitamin deficiency, and Maurice had suffered from deep vein thrombosis and had a blood clot in his lung, damaging it irreversibly. They both had ulcers on their bodies from the salt water rubbing on their bodies, and their raft was so small that they couldn't change positions, and they suffered from anemia. Maurice became deaf in one ear due to an infection he had on the life raft.
But other than that, they're in great shape, everybody.
Their entire ordeal was made into a book called 117 Days Adrift, and they did actually stick to their guns, and they were vegetarian for the rest of their lives.
Did the book get turned into a movie?
It didn't, actually, which is strange. Everything is a movie now.
I guess I'll never get to see what happened. I need my Hollywood history.
You can watch the interview, but the interview kind of ends sadly because Marilyn died in the 80s sometime of cancer. And Maurice just kind of grew old by himself. He didn't have any other friends or family, and he was just alone. This interviewer that came and saw him, it seemed like that's all he had. It was pretty sad, actually.
But was he happy?
He said he was happy, and
Well,
he
then.
said he would actually, if they had ever offered him the chance to go live in the raft again, and he knew that he was going to be rescued, he would do it in a second.
Some people just like being in their own head and being in their own space.
This is true. And that's actually what he said. He said, "I like to be alone, and I'm happy like this."
So if he's happy, it's not sad.
That's true.
So
So that is my story.
that's it?
That's it.
What?
It was just a short one.
Just a short one?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm not pulling my weight here real well, am I? You read these novels.
Your stories they're not going to have people writing articles about them, I'm sure, or having interviews you can't interview a dead guy.
No, this is true. I guess it's kind of hard. You could maybe interview some of the friends and family and say, hey, how did this occur? But whatever. These will be exciting for you because they're all about animals.
Oh, I don't know if that's exciting or not.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes. In August of 1995, there was one of the most upsetting things that could occur in your life
What happened?
A chicken fell down a well.
Not a chicken. I love chickens. I really
Yep,
love
yep.
chickens.
A chicken. On a farm in Egypt, a chicken was just clucking around, minding his own business, and down the hole he goes
Poor baby.
into the water.
Aw.
So one of the young farmers or family members, it doesn't really say which is which. They say that they say he's an 18-year-old farmer. So that's what we'll go with. Sees this happen and he runs to the well and he decides that he needs to get into the well to rescue this chicken.
That seems like a bad idea.
Why?
Well, going into a well just seems like it's probably a terrible idea. You just
Well.
see all those kids trapped in wells all the time.
Those are like tiny little wells. It's not like this one. This one's a nice, good size well.
I can't see the well. I don't know.
Well, I'm giving you a visualization. I'm painting the picture in your mind with my words.
All right. It has been set. The scene has been set in my face.
Scene set. So he goes down the well to get the chicken and quickly gets swept away in an undercurrent.
Undercurrent? I thought we were talking about a well.
Yeah, apparently there's undercurrents in them.
Okay, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the water tables and where the well is, and I guess Egypt or whatever, but I guess there is a few over there. I tried to Google
Egypt has magical wells with undercurrents.
Yeah, right beside the pyramids. This is what the pharaohs did. They just grabbed the people. You tried to invade me. Down the well you go. Pew, swept
Where
away.
do they end up? Is it like a giant slip and slide, like in Goonies?
No, and that wasn't in Egypt. Learn your movies. Like there's so many Egyptian, like the Mummy. You could have said
The Mummy didn't have a water slide. The Goonies did.
it's true. However, now we're way off course. Now we're about to argue about Goonies and the Mummy. Yep, that's what we were going to do.
Yeah.
See, now I'm completely lost. I have no idea where I'm at.
Dude just got swept away by an undercurrent trying to get the chicken.
See,
But what happened to the chicken?
I was
This is
just-
the
I was-
biggest question.
I was just making sure that you were listening. That's what I was doing.
Okay.
Don't worry about the chicken because another farmer showed up, went down the well, and quickly got swept away.
He followed the first one after he watched what happened to the first one?
Well, I don't know if he watched. It's a well. It's not like it's on TV. And they
Okay,
got
but he went into the well. He never came out of the well.
maybe he got stuck down in the well. Do
Looking
you know how many
around.
children get stuck down in a well in a year?
This is true. This is true.
Somebody told me that
Did
once.
he have a rope tied to him?
Yes, that's how they climb down.
Okay.
They climb down on a rope.
So why didn't they just pull the rope and like pull them back in? Or is the undercurrent that strong?
I don't know, but you can ask the third one that went down.
No.
Yes,
No.
because the third one got down there and then took the rope, grabbed a hold of the chicken. No, I'm lying. They got swept away too.
Oh my God. What is going on right now?
Well, you can be sure that the fourth one said enough is enough.
Yeah.
And no, they went into.
Okay. Where are the women? The women should be putting a stop to this.
How do you know they're not women?
Because I think every one of your stories, every one of your Johnnies has been a man.
You don't know that. I call everybody Johnny. You have no idea.
That's
Maybe they're all women. Do you know I have a whole
Okay.
series that I watch called Darwin's Damsels?
I bet they're men.
They're Darwin's Damsels.
I know. I mean the well people. I bet they're men.
I don't know. I'm not telling you either, even if I do know. But I know for a fact that the fifth one and the sixth one both drowned doing the same.
Come on. Did they hold hands and go together? Like, what's going on right now? I don't
Six
understand.
people went down to rescue this chicken. This is how important this chicken must have been.
Was it like
I think it laid golden
was
eggs.
it a chicken god? Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe it was the golden chicken.
That's a golden
It's
goose, but
Yeah.
golden chicken, maybe. Here we are in another, now we're in the Jack and the Beanstalk. We're going to go right through all the movies that we know today, guys. Anyways, yes, 6 people swept away by the undercurrent, all got their shiny Darwin Award.
That is
But you know who didn't get their Darwin Award?
the chicken.
That's right. The chicken lived.
No.
Yep. After all of this, the chicken survived.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I mean,
So-
it's horrible, but yay, chicken.
That's horrible. So I did some research. I tried to find out more about the underground well system and stuff, and really there wasn't a whole lot on it. But I did find that off of the WHO and stuff that drowning is the third leading cause of unintentional injury and or death worldwide,
Yeah, that's
accounting for 7% of all injury-related deaths. There are an estimated 236,000 annually drowning deaths
Wow.
worldwide.
a lot of drownings.
But did you know, and I'm going to have to give you one here, because as I did more research on it, yeah, it says males are especially at risk,
See, I told you.
with twice the overall mortality rate.
You're twice as likely to drown if you're a man.
Yeah, do you know why?
Why? Tell me
Because
why.
we are more likely to swim alone because we're not cowards, and we're more likely to be out on a boat doing something and enjoying a beverage.
Just like a Coca-Cola? Is that the beverage that you're speaking?
That's all I have,
of?
because I don't drink. I don't know about the other idiots. But this was probably the best fact I found about drowning from the WHO. They stated this. Okay. Like, remember, this is right off of the government website.
Right.
It says if you have more access to water and you are around water more, your risk of drowning goes up.
Well, no shit, Sherlock.
No. Hey, I had to look that up. I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that. How was I supposed to?
I'm less likely to drown if I'm in a desert than if I live at the ocean?
Apparently, that's one of those things.
Wow.
I know. The who knew. Aha. All right. So,
Right.
what'd you think of that?
That was good. That was pretty good. The
Hope
chicken
they-
lived.
Yes. Hopefully he'll stop clucking around and won't fall in anymore. So this next one I'm going to take on, I'm going to read you some stuff. I will be reading it as a paramedic, and I'll be going through a whole lot of scenes here. So please keep up.
You're going to be a thespian.
I am going to be, what's that? What'd you just call me?
You're going to be an actor.
All right. What was that first word?
Thespian.
I have to check because sometimes you call me a piece of shit.
No.
Yes, you do.
I call you facetious.
Stop calling me a piece of shit. I am not feces. She says that to me all the time. And just while I'm ratting her out, she also peeked at my stories this week.
Not.
You peeked at my stories.
I didn't peek. I glanced in his
Glanced. Yeah,
in
when
his
it's
general
glanced.
direction. I glanced, and he like grabbed everything and said, "Stop looking at my stories."
She was trying to read because she knows this is the most entertaining part of the podcast. She knows that everybody sits there and goes, oh, just get Rob on, hurry up. And she's like, I want to make mine more exciting. Ah. Anyways.
Carry on.
Okay. So here we go. This is the story. Oh my God. There's blood and guts hanging out. What happened here? This is what the first responders asked when they showed up in the middle of a field that they were called to. So what did happen, you ask? Blood, guts in a field? Got to be a tractor accident, right?
That would be my guess.
Yeah, it wasn't. So I'm going to tell you the story that Johnny told the first responders when they showed up. So here we go. This is from Johnny's friend,
Okay.
because Johnny is dead.
Poor Johnny.
Poor Johnny. A bunch of the boys were out drinking and playing around on their quads when Johnny and his friends came across a few deers. Well, being country boys and liking to hunt, I haven't even drank anything. Liking to hunt, this really got them excited. But they had no guns, no crossbows, no bow and arrows. I don't even know if it was in season. But anyways, it didn't take long for Johnny to come up with an idea on how he was going to solve that problem.
Oh God.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'm just waiting on pins and needles to hear how he's going to solve that problem.
Well, here's what Johnny said. Johnny told his friend he's going to sit on the back of his motorcycle and or quad, and he is to drive up really fast, and he would jump off and wrestle one of the deer to the ground.
He didn't.
That's what he told him.
Oh.
But he didn't want just anyone. There was a nice sized buck out there,
Oh my
and he wanted the buck.
Like,
So Johnny's friend was like, no, we're not going to. No, he didn't. He was like,
do you know why?
do it.
Because he was a man.
That's right. That's it. Next week, all women. All women. That's all you're getting. So Johnny's friend thought this was a great idea. So off they go. Now, I'm going to tell you the first part of this I'm kind of impressed with. So they took off. They were able to separate the deer out. They were actually to catch up to the buck.
Wow, like they were separating a herd of cow.
Yeah. But I mean, come on. They were drunk. They've been drinking. They did all this. And Johnny jumped off the back of the bike and able to grab a hold of the deer and wrestle it to the ground.
Jesus. Well, I hope they got it on
Do you know why? Because he's a man.
Oh, God.
He's a man.
And then what happened to Johnny? Because I know it didn't end well.
Oh, that was it. Thanks for joining us. No, the deer had other plans
I
on.
bet he did.
And he was like, I'm not going in a freezer. I don't want to be in a freezer. So he took his rack of antlers and decided to rip open Johnny's belly and his sides.
Oh,
And then he started jumping up and down and using his hoofs to stamp him and stamp him to death.
Yeah, I know if you watch any of those videos of when deer attack, they're pretty vicious.
Yep. So now, do you remember back at the beginning of the story when I said, the first responders were asking what happened?
Yes.
So this is the story they actually got. And the first responder said, well, that explains most of it, but we have one more question. And Johnny's friend's like, what? Like what? They go, okay, well, we understand the tears from the antlers and we understand the broken bones and stuff from the stomping. But what they couldn't understand was the tire marks that were across Johnny's body. And no, the deer did not hop on the quad.
That would have been great, though.
Johnny's friend responded with, well, I had to get the deer off him somehow.
He didn't.
Yep. So instead of trying to shoo him off, beat him with a stick,
Are you joking?
he took his quad and drove it across Johnny's body and hit the deer.
Was he thinking?
He was thinking he was going to get the deer off his buddy.
Oh my God.
I mean, really, at this point, do you think the quad did that much more damage?
I think it did. I think it truly did.
Well, it actually left tire marks, so maybe it did. Anyways, in this story as well, the buck gets up and runs away.
Wow. That is just plain stupid. Like, just dumb.
And here's your award. I don't think it's going to take too long for Johnny's friend to be in one of these stories.
I don't think so either. In fact, I think that was probably your best Darwin Award story that I've heard, Chuck. That was pretty dumb.
So anyways, I thought I'd do a little statistics on when deer attack. In the USA, statistics show that deer are extremely deadly. Believe it or not, they cause more deaths than sharks.
Holy.
120 a year. In saying that, most of the deaths though are from deer running out into cars or cars, running into cars and stuff like that. So
shark's not going to do that.
No, not too often. I mean, Sharknado maybe. I don't know.
I think that happened actually in Sharknado.
It might have actually. But the thing you got to remember is when you're out there is sometimes if you're out hiking stuff, when the female deer will attack is because they'll actually hide their fawns and they'll go out and
little baby fawns.
Yeah, and they'll tuck them away so nobody sees them. So they're out there gathering food for their fawns, and you don't even know that you've actually come close to them. And that's when the mama goes, oh, not my babies. And she runs over and they'll start attacking. And then, of course, during rutting season, which is also mating season.
They go batshit.
Yeah, the males have no, I mean, if you're around in this area, when like they just, they don't know, they protect the territory and everything like that. So, that's my Darwin stories. And that's if you're out hiking and you see a deer, maybe take pictures from afar, turn around, back away slowly. And
don't try to climb on top of it and wrangle it to the ground. That's probably your best bet.
Unless you're really hungry. I mean, like really, if you're out there and you have to.
Well, you did a good job.
Okay, so
let's talk about sending in stories. We need your survival stories or your near Darwin stories or any funny quip that you may have. Write us at deadersurvivepodcast@gmail.com.
You don't even like it. That's deadersurvivepodcast@gmail.com.
That's it, yes.
You can also check out our Facebook page. You can also check out our Instagram. Cheryl goes on there and posts pictures of the survivors and stuff. Maybe this time she'll put a deer up there.
A Rambo deer.
A Rambo deer or something up there with a machine gun or whatever. But yeah, she posts pictures up there all the time. So yeah, go and visit that stuff. Put in your stories. Give us your likes and everything like that. If you're out there listening to this podcast and you're enjoying it,
please.
Yes, please subscribe, download, do all that stuff that you need to do. We're up on numerous areas now. So Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher,
Apple.
Yeah, Apple, everywhere. So yeah. So I guess that means we're at the point of the story that you enjoy the most.
Oh boy, here we go.
Are you ready for this?
I am.
It's animal related.
Oh, good. We had a theme this time.
Yeah.
Animal theme.
Well, see, because I was talking about animals, I thought I'd keep it all that way. So anyways,
okay.
Why do birds not wear underwear?
Why? Why don't birds wear underwear?
Because their peckers are on their face.
Okay, I like that one. That one's good.
Ba, ba, ba. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again. You guys know what you got to do, and we appreciate everybody listening and having fun and following along.
Until next week.
Bye.